Stardust Syndrome. The night sky over Montana had never looked more violent. Dr. Maya stood on the observation deck of her isolated research facility, watching something that defied every law of physics she'd spent 15 years studying. The object wasn't falling, it was fighting. Trails of silver light carved desperate patterns across the darkness, as if the pilot inside knew exactly what awaited at the end of this descent. She'd been tracking the anomaly for 3 days. The cosmic radiation signature matched nothing in any database, human or otherwise. Her colleagues at the university called it a sensor malfunction. Her funding committee called it a waste of resources. But Maya had learned to trust patterns that others dismissed. The impact shook the valley. Not an explosion, something softer, almost controlled. Through her telescope, she watched the crash site, a wheat field belonging to the Hendersons who'd retired to Florida last spring. No witnesses, no immediate danger. She should have called the authorities. Protocol demanded it. Instead, Maya grabbed her medical kit and drove her jeep into the night. The craft looked like it had been grown rather than built. Organic curves melted into crystalline structures that pulsed with fading bioluminescence. Already it was dissolving, breaking down into something that resembled ash but felt like silk between her fingers. The hatch opened before she could touch it. Inside, strapped to a seat designed for a body plan almost, but not quite human, was the pilot. His skin held the deep blue-black of space itself, shot through with veins that glowed a dying amber. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. But the proportions were all wrong, stretched and elegant in ways that made her think of deep-sea creatures who'd never known sunlight. His eyes opened. 3 of them arranged in a triangle across a face that somehow conveyed both utter alienness and heartbreaking familiarity. "You should not be here," he whispered, and impossibly she understood. Not through her ears, the words formed directly in her mind, carrying layers of meaning no human language could contain. "Neither should you," Maya replied, kneeling beside him. Her hands moved automatically, checking vital signs her medical training said shouldn't exist. Pulse, irregular but present. Breathing, shallow, wrong rhythm. Temperature, fluctuating wildly. "I am Axiron." The name carried weight, like a title and a warning. "I am dying of something your people has no name for. In my language, we call it the Stellamortem, the death that rides on starlight." Maya's hand stilled. She'd read the theoretical papers, the wild speculations from fringe xenobiologists, a disease that traveled on cosmic rays that could wipe out entire civilizations. Most scientists dismissed it as mathematical fantasy. "How long?" she asked. "I felt the first symptoms 3 months ago. Most of my people last 6 weeks. I've been stubborn." Something that might have been a smile crossed his features. "I came to your planet because the radiation signature suggested a possible cure. Instead, I brought my death to your doorstep." "Then we have work to do," Maya said, and helped him stand. Her laboratory wasn't designed for this. Equipment meant for analyzing human genomes and terrestrial pathogens suddenly felt absurdly inadequate. But Maya had spent her career making do with limited resources, and stubbornness was something she understood. Axiron's physiology defied easy categorization. His blood, if it could be called that, contained elements that shouldn't exist in nature. Crystalline structures that resembled cells but behaved like quantum computers. A circulatory system that seemed to operate on principles of light as much as chemistry. The Stellamortem attacks the very bonds that hold my people together, he explained, lying on her examination table. Each word came slower now, harder. We are not just biological. We are partially composed of organized stellar matter. The disease breaks down that organization, returns us to chaos. Maya studied the samples under her electron microscope. She could see it happening in real time, the beautiful, intricate patterns of his cellular structure unraveling like a tapestry being pulled apart thread by thread. There has to be something, she muttered, running her 100th test. Some commonality, some bridge between your biology and ours. There is none. Axiron's voice had gone flat with acceptance. I have analyzed your species' composition. We share nothing meaningful. Different elements, different organizing principles. It would be like trying to cure a song with mathematics. Math is just another kind of song, Maya shot back, preparing another sample. But her hands were shaking. In just 3 hours, she'd watched his condition deteriorate. The glow in his veins had dimmed to barely visible threads.
She worked through the night. Blood samples, tissue cultures, radiation measurements. Nothing worked. Nothing even came close. By dawn, Axiron had lost the strength to speak aloud. His thoughts in her mind had become whispers. Maya slumped at her desk, exhausted and defeated. Her hand knocked over a sample vial, her own blood, drawn earlier for baseline comparisons. It rolled across the table, coming to rest against one of Axiron's samples. Where the two bloods touched, something impossible happened. The crystalline structures in Axiron's blood suddenly began reorganizing, not randomly, purposefully, deliberately. They reached toward Maya's cells like flowers turning toward sunlight. Her hemoglobin responded, iron molecules vibrating at frequencies that should have been inaudible to anything. "Wh—" Maya breathed, leaning closer. Axiron's eyes opened, all three at once, brighter than they'd been in hours. "Your blood," he whispered into her mind. "It's singing." The transfusion should have killed them both. Every protocol Maya had ever learned screamed against it. Different species, incompatible biology, unknown interactions. But Axiron was dying, had minutes left at most, and sometimes science demanded a leap into the absolute dark. She rigged an IV line, primitive and desperate. Her blood flowing into his veins, his into hers. The moment their circulatory systems connected, the world turned inside out. Maya gasped, her vision fracturing. Suddenly she was seeing through 6 eyes, 3 hers, 3 his. She could feel her laboratory from 2 perspectives simultaneously. Her human senses, sight, sound, touch, overlaid with something entirely other. Axiron perceived the world in radiation spectrums, in quantum probabilities, in dimensions her brain had no framework to process. "Maya," his voice in her mind, no longer a whisper but a chorus. She could feel his panic mixing with her own, 2 sets of fear harmonizing into something that transcended either. Then deeper. She felt his memories pouring into her awareness like water finding new channels. She saw his home world, Zephyros, he called it, though the name carried meanings about wind and consciousness and light that human language couldn't capture. Crystalline cities that grew like forests, each building a living thing. Skies filled with 3 suns, painting everything in color she had no names for. A civilization that had mastered not just science, but the art of collective dreaming. And she saw its end. The Stellamortem arriving on solar winds, carried by a cosmic event their astronomers hadn't predicted. Cities going dark. Millions of his people unraveling, returning to base starlight. The desperate search for a cure. The volunteers who flew to distant worlds, hoping to find some species, some biology that might hold an answer. "I was a musician,"
Axiron's memory voice explained, and she felt it. The joy he'd found in composing symphonies that could be seen and tasted as much as heard. I was not a scientist, not a hero, just someone who couldn't watch my world die without trying something. Then his memories reached the crash, the despair, the certainty of failure. And then her, a stranger who should have called the authorities, should have protected herself, but instead knelt in the wreckage and asked, "How long?" Maya felt tears on her cheeks, but didn't know if they were hers or his, or both. Her own memories were flowing the other direction, Axiron experiencing her childhood in fragments, a small apartment in Seattle, her mother's illness, the cancer that took her when she was 16, her father's grief transforming into distance, the way he'd looked through her rather than at her until she left for college and never really came back. The isolation of her work, chosen deliberately, the way she'd built her career around diseases of the blood, trying to solve in others what she couldn't fix in her mother. The small facility in Montana, far from colleagues who called her obsessive, from relationships that withered when people realized her research would always come first. "You are alone." Axiron's thought voice carried no judgment, only recognition. "Yes," Maya whispered aloud, and felt him understand depths of loneliness that neither of them had words for.
The transfusion continued. Maya could feel the changes in real time, Axiron's cells responding to hers, using her human hemoglobin as a template to rebuild their own damaged structures. It shouldn't work. It violated everything she knew about biology. But somehow, her blood was teaching his how to hold itself together again. The Stellamortem retreated, just slightly, a millimeter of ground reclaimed in a losing war. But Maya could feel the cost, her own strength draining, her heartbeat becoming irregular. The transfusion was saving Axiron, but it was consuming her. "Stop," Axiron commanded, and she felt his consciousness reaching for the IV line. "No," Maya said, holding the needle in place with shaking hands. "Not yet. You're killing yourself. Maybe, or maybe we're finding something neither of us expected." Because something else was happening beyond the medical miracle. With each moment their blood mixed, their minds intertwined more deeply. Not just sharing memories now, sharing sensations, emotions, the fundamental experience of being conscious. Maya could feel what it was like to perceive reality as Axiron did, to think in harmonics rather than linear sequences. And he was drowning in the overwhelming rush of human emotion, the way feelings crashed through her like storms. She felt his wonder at simply feeling anger, joy, fear so directly. His people experienced emotions more like weather patterns, vast, collective, diffuse. But human feelings were sharp and personal and immediate. And underneath it all, something unexpected, something neither of them had planned or predicted or could control. Recognition. Connection. The terrifying, exhilarating sensation of being truly seen by another consciousness. "This is impossible," Maya breathed. "Yes," Axiron agreed, "but it's happening anyway." The transfusion continued until Maya's vision started to gray at the edges. Only then did she stop, carefully disconnecting the lines with the last of her coordination. She slumped in her chair, utterly spent. Axiron sat up on the examination table, slowly, testing each movement, but moving nonetheless. The glow in his veins had brightened to something approaching healthy. Not cured. She could feel through their connection that the Stellamortem still lurked in his system, but beaten back, held at bay. "You saved me," he said, his physical voice stronger. "For now." "We saved each other," Maya corrected, because she could feel it. The way her own chronic depression, the gray numbness that had haunted her for years, had lifted. Whatever had passed between them had changed her, too. She felt more alive than she had in a decade. They sat in silence as dawn broke outside. Two beings from different worlds sharing the same exhausted relief. Neither of them knew yet what they'd actually begun. The military arrived on the second day. Maya had known it was inevitable. The radiation signature from Axiron's crash had been too significant to ignore. What surprised her was how long it took. She'd expected black helicopters within hours. Instead, it was a small convoy of unmarked vehicles and people in suits who introduced themselves with first names only. "Dr. Maya," said the woman leading them, who'd given her name as Sarah. "We need to have a conversation about your guest. He's a patient, and he's under my care." She positioned herself between them and the laboratory door. "He's an extraterrestrial presence on U.S. soil, which makes him a matter of national security. We're not here to hurt anyone. We just need to ensure there's no threat." Through her connection with Axiron, she felt his fear spike, and more. She sensed his desperate calculation, his consideration of trying to fight his way past them, the knowledge that he was still too weak to succeed. "Stand down," she projected to him. "Let me handle this." His reluctance flowed back to her, but he obeyed.
The next 6 hours were a careful dance. Maya granted them limited access, showed them sanitized versions of her research, demonstrated that Axiron posed no biological threat to humanity. She emphasized the medical nature of their work, the scientific opportunity, the peaceful contact. What she didn't tell them was about the transfusions, about the connection, about the fact that her blood was the only thing keeping an alien alive. Sarah wasn't stupid. Maya could see the suspicion in her eyes, the way her gaze lingered on the IV equipment, the blood sample storage. But without proof of anything dangerous, without orders for a full quarantine, she could only probe and question and warn. "This situation is highly irregular, Doctor," Sarah said as they prepared to leave. "We'll be maintaining surveillance, and if anything changes, if there's any indication of risk, we'll be back with a very different approach." "Understood," Maya said. After they left, she found Axiron standing by the window, staring at the mountains. Through their bond, she felt his turmoil. "They will not allow this to continue. They will take me eventually, study me, contain me. Your government cannot permit an unknown variable to remain free." Then we work faster. We find a permanent cure for the Stellamortem. We document everything. We prove that this is medical research, not a threat. Axiron. He turned to face her, and she felt the weight of what he was about to say before he spoke it. "There may be no permanent cure, not one that doesn't require you." She'd known this, on some level. Each time they'd performed a transfusion over the past 2 days, the effects lasted longer. 6 hours, then 12, then 20. But the Stellamortem always returned, and only her blood could beat it back. "Then I'll keep giving transfusions," she said simply. "For how long? Weeks? Months? Until you've bled yourself dry?" His frustration crashed through their link. "I came here seeking a cure for my people, not to slowly kill the one person who showed me kindness." "Maybe that's not your choice to make. Maybe it's not yours either." They stood on opposite sides of her laboratory, separated by 20 feet and an impossible gulf. Maya could feel his resolve crystallizing, the decision to leave, to spare her, to return to space and let the Stellamortem finish what it had started. "Don't," she said quietly. "Don't you dare make this noble gesture. Don't you dare decide that you're not worth saving. It's not nobility. It's mathematics. One life against one life. The equation balances. But you matter, Maya. Your research, your work, the things you could still discover, that outweighs—" "Stop it!" Her voice cracked. Just stop. You want to talk mathematics? Fine. Let's be precise. You're not one life. You're the only person in the universe who understands what it's like inside my head. You're the first consciousness I've touched in years that doesn't feel like trying to communicate through soundproof glass. You're the only one who's ever looked at my loneliness and recognized it because you carry the same weight. Through their connection, she felt his shock, his resistance, his desperate attempt not to acknowledge what she was saying. This isn't about sacrifice. It's about the fact that for the first time in a decade, I wake up and the world feels like it has color. It's about how I can feel you experiencing dawn the way I experience music. It's about knowing, really knowing that I'm not alone in the universe. Maya, I'm not finished. You came here looking for a cure, and maybe we found something neither of us expected. Maybe the answer isn't in blood chemistry. Maybe it's in connection. Two impossible beings finding each other across the void. Silence stretched between them, but through their bond, words were unnecessary. She felt him processing, feeling, understanding, felt the moment his resistance crumbled. This is madness, he finally said. Yes, it cannot possibly work. Probably not. We are from different worlds, different biologies, different ways of thinking. I know. But I don't want to leave, he admitted, and the honesty of it struck through their connection like lightning. I should. It would be logical, rational, the correct decision. But the thought of severing this link, of not sensing you in my mind, of returning to being utterly alone, I can't.
Maya crossed the space between them. Up close, his alienness became more apparent, the way his skin refracted light, the subtle wrongness of his proportions, the fact that his heartbeat ran at half the speed of hers. But through their bond, she could feel his heart as if it beat in her own chest. Then we figure this out, she said, together, whatever comes next. Axiron's hand, 3 fingers and a thumb, arranged slightly wrong, reached out to touch her face. His skin felt like warm glass, smooth and impossibly delicate. I have never understood human literature, the way your poets write about love, as if it were a force that defies reason. On Zephyros, bonding is deliberate, chosen, built over decades of careful compatibility. He paused, searching for words in a language that wasn't his own. This feels like falling, like your gravity taking hold whether I choose it or not. Maya felt tears on her cheeks. Is that what this is? Love? I don't know what else to call it. My people don't have this kind of intensity. We don't crash into each other's lives and upend everything. But you have infected me with more than your blood, Maya. You have infected me with your way of feeling everything so fiercely. Good. I'd hate to be the only one completely terrified. They stood together as the sun climbed higher, 2 beings who shouldn't exist in the same space, bound by something that transcended biology and reason. Neither of them saw the surveillance van in the hills, recording everything. The 3rd transfusion nearly killed them both. Maya had calculated carefully, waiting until Axiron's readings indicated the Stellamortem was resurging. They'd established a rhythm: transfusion, recovery, monitoring, repeat. Each time the interval before relapse grew slightly longer. She allowed herself to hope they were building towards something permanent. But this time, something went wrong. The moment their blood connected, pain exploded through both of them. Maya screamed, feeling her veins burning as if filled with acid. Through their link, she experienced Axiron's agony amplified, his crystalline structures fracturing, the Stellamortem not retreating but surging, using her blood as a highway to spread faster.
"Disconnect!" Axiron's mind voice was a roar of anguish. "Maya, stop the transfusion!" Her hands wouldn't obey. The pain had locked her muscles, bent her double over the medical equipment. Blood flowed between them, but now it felt wrong, corrupted, as if the disease had found a way to poison both their biologies at once. Through the haze of agony, Maya's scientist brain still functioned. She could sense what was happening. The Stellamortem had adapted. Like any successful pathogen, it had learned from exposure. Her blood was no longer a cure, but a bridge, allowing the disease to test whether it could jump species. If it succeeded, if the Stellamortem found a way to infect humanity. With a surge of desperate strength, Maya ripped the IV line free. Blood sprayed across her laboratory equipment. She and Axiron both collapsed, their connection screaming with shared pain. For long minutes, neither could move. Maya lay on the floor, watching her blood pool and dry, feeling her heart struggling to find its rhythm again. Through their bond, she felt Axiron's consciousness flickering like a dying flame. "This is it," he whispered in her mind, his mental voice growing distant. "The disease has learned. It will kill me, and if you try to save me again, it will kill you too. The connection must end." "No," Maya gasped, dragging herself upright. Her vision swam. "No, there has to be another way." "There isn't. Maya, please, let me go." But she was already moving, pulling herself to her computer. Her fingers left blood smears on the keyboard as she pulled up all her research data. 3 days of measurements, cellular analyses, quantum readings. Somewhere in the numbers had to be an answer. "What are you doing?" Axiron's voice carried resignation. "Accept the inevitable." "Shut up, I'm thinking." She pulled up the microscope feeds, examining the samples from all 3 transfusions. The first one, successful. The second, even better. The third, catastrophic. What had changed? Then she saw it. A pattern in the cellular interaction that she'd dismissed as background noise. The Stellamortem wasn't just a disease, it was a form of disorganized stellar matter seeking to return to chaos. But her human blood didn't just provide structure, it provided information, organization, pattern. The problem was quantity. Each transfusion, they'd transferred the same amount of blood. But Axiron's system needed more each time because the Stellamortem was learning to resist. And human blood couldn't match that escalation. There simply wasn't enough that Maya could safely give. Unless... "Axiron," she said, her voice shaky. "Your people, how do they heal from injuries?" "We share vitality. Multiple individuals donate small amounts of their life force to restore one who is damaged. But that requires my people, and they are all dying on Zephyros, yes. But what if we're thinking about this wrong? What if the cure isn't in my blood specifically, but in the principle of connection, of multiple sources providing patterns, information, structure?" She was pulling up new screens now, accessing databases she'd hoped never to use. Global blood bank records, tissue registries, the vast network of human biological donations. "I don't understand," Axiron said, but she felt a flicker of hope through their bond. "Blood transfusions between humans work because we're all similar enough to share. But what if we expanded that principle? Not just my blood, but multiple human donors, different genetic patterns, different organizations, all providing structural information simultaneously. The Stellamortem couldn't adapt to all of them at once. That would require a massive coordinated effort, yes, medical infrastructure I don't have access to, and the cooperation of authorities who want to lock you up and study you." Maya laughed bitterly. Impossible. Completely impossible. Then why are you smiling? She turned to look at him, this alien being lying collapsed on her laboratory floor, dying of a disease from the stars, and she thought about her mother, wasting away while Maya could only watch helplessly. About every patient she'd failed to save, every disease she'd studied but couldn't cure. About all the years of isolation, of choosing research over connection, of building walls to keep the world at bay. Because I spent my whole life trying to solve problems alone, and maybe it's time to try something different. She picked up her phone and called Sarah. The facility they moved Axiron to was underground, built during the Cold War for purposes no one would officially confirm. Maya had expected a prison. Instead, she found something closer to a hospital, staffed by military doctors who listened with surprising attentiveness as she explained her theory. You're proposing we use Axiron as a test case for multi-donor xenotransfusion, using human blood components to provide structural templates for alien cellular regeneration. Yes, Maya confirmed. The Stellamortem breaks down organized stellar matter. Human blood, with its complex mixture of proteins and genetic information, could provide multiple templates simultaneously. The disease can adapt to one pattern, but not dozens at once. If you're wrong, we could be creating a vector for the Stellamortem to jump to humans. I'm aware of the risk, and yet you want us to authorize it anyway. Why? Through her connection with Axiron, she felt his attention focus. He was in another room, sedated but conscious, monitoring this conversation through her senses. She'd promised to be honest with him, to make no decisions without his awareness. Because the alternative is watching someone die when we might save them. Because scientific knowledge matters less than being able to look yourself in the mirror. And because... She paused, considering how much to reveal. Because he matters. To me. Ramirez's eyebrows rose. Doctor, are you telling me you formed an emotional attachment to an extraterrestrial patient? I'm telling you that consciousness recognizes consciousness regardless of origin, and that isolation is isolation, whether you're alone on a planet or alone in a species. We found each other across the void, and I refuse to let that connection end without a fight. For a long moment, Ramirez said nothing. Then he pulled up a file on his tablet. 3 months ago, my wife died of a rare genetic disorder. We knew it was coming for years. I spent that time researching, consulting, trying everything. In the end, nothing worked. He looked up at Maya. But I would have tried anything at all, for one more day with her. So, I understand.
He stood, making his decision. I'll authorize the procedure, but on one condition. We do this as rigorously controlled medical research. Full monitoring, documented protocols, peer review of every step. If this works, it could revolutionize our understanding of biology. If it fails, at least we'll learn something. Agreed, Maya said. And doctor, if this succeeds, you'll need to write the paper of the century, because explaining how an alien disease was cured through an act of love is going to require very careful wording. They assembled 12 donors, each screened carefully for biological diversity. Different ethnicities, different genetic markers, different blood types. Each would provide only a small amount, not enough to endanger any individual, but together creating a symphony of biological information. Maya coordinated everything, designing a transfusion system that would introduce the blood gradually, allowing Axiron's system to integrate each pattern before moving to the next. It looked like something from a science fiction film. Multiple IV lines, computer-controlled pumps, monitors tracking variables human medicine had never measured before. Axiron lay at the center of it all. his three eyes watching her with an expression she learned to read. "This could kill you," he said through their connection. "If I have a catastrophic reaction, if the Stellamortem uses this as an opportunity to surge, then we'll handle it. Together." You've grown fond of that word. I've grown fond of a lot of things lately. Alien musicians who crash land in wheat fields, minds that think in harmonics, the way dawn looks through 6 eyes instead of 2. Through their bond, she felt his emotional response, something like human affection, but more complex, layered with harmonics of gratitude and wonder and fear. "When this is over," Axiron said quietly, "when I'm cured or dead, what happens to us? This connection between us, it's sustained by my need for your blood, by the medical crisis. Without that, we'll still be us," Maya said. Though privately, she wondered, could a connection forged in desperation survive when the desperation ended? Could two beings from different worlds build something lasting? "Begin the procedure," Ramirez ordered. The first donor's blood entered Axiron's system. Maya watched the monitors, tracking his cellular response. Through their connection, she experienced it from inside, the strangeness of foreign biological information flooding his awareness, his body learning to integrate new patterns. 1 donor, then 2, then 5, each adding their unique signature to the mix. The Stellamortem reacted, surging and retreating, trying to adapt. But there were too many patterns, too much information, too many different organizational structures to overcome simultaneously. Like a pathogen facing a combination therapy, it found itself outmaneuvered. 6 donors, 8, 10. Axiron's vital signs strengthened. The crystalline structures in his blood began reorganizing themselves. But this time the change felt permanent, not just beating back the disease, but learning from the human patterns how to resist it entirely. "Remarkable," Ramirez breathed, watching the monitors. "His cellular structure is incorporating elements from all the donors. He's becoming a hybrid biology." Maya felt it through their connection. The way Axiron's system was changing at a fundamental level. Not just cured, but transformed, carrying pieces of 12 different humans in his very structure. He would never be purely Zephyrosi again, but he would live. 12 donors, all the blood administered. The monitor showed stable readings across the board. And then, slowly, their mental connection began to fade. Maya gasped, reaching for it instinctively. It felt like watching the tide retreat, like losing a scent she'd only just learned to use. Through their link, she felt Axiron's panic mirroring her own. "What's happening?" she demanded. "He's stabilizing," Ramirez explained. "His dependence on your specific biology is ending. He's no longer..." "Dying," Maya finished numbly. "He's no longer dying, so he no longer needs me."
Through the fading connection, she felt Axiron's desperation. He was trying to hold on to the link, to maintain the bridge between their minds, but it was dissolving like morning mist. The medical crisis had created the bond. Without it, there was nothing to sustain the impossible connection between their nervous systems. "Maya," his voice in her mind growing distant. "Maya, I can't." "I know," she whispered. "I know." The last thread snapped. Suddenly, she was alone in her own head for the first time in days. The silence felt like falling, like losing gravity. She'd grown so accustomed to the double perspective, to feeling his presence at the edge of her thoughts, that being singular again felt like amputation. On the medical table, Axiron sat up, fully healed, stronger than he'd been since the crash. He looked at Maya across the room, and she saw in his 3 eyes the same loss she felt. "Well," Ramirez said into the silence, "that was successful. Congratulations, both of you. You've just proven that interspecies medicine is possible." Neither Maya nor Axiron responded. They stared at each other, two beings who'd been one, now suddenly severed. The cure had worked perfectly. It felt like dying. They gave Axiron a room in the facility while the military debated what to do with him. Not a cell, something more like diplomatic quarters. But he was still effectively a prisoner, a living example of extraterrestrial contact, too valuable to release, too unprecedented to know how to handle. Maya visited daily. They sat together in uncomfortable silence, two people who'd shared everything, and now had to learn how to simply be in the same room. "You're healing well," she'd say, reviewing his latest test results. "Yes," he'd reply, "thanks to you." Then silence again, vast and uncomfortable. After 3 days of this, Maya couldn't take it anymore. "I can still feel the ghost of you," she admitted. "Like phantom limb syndrome. My mind reaches for the connection and finds nothing." "I know," Axiron said quietly. "I keep trying to sense your emotions, and there's only void." "Maybe this is better, healthier. We were only bonded because of the medical crisis. It wasn't real." "Don't." His voice carried an edge she'd never heard. "Don't diminish what happened between us. It was real. It is real. The method of connection doesn't change the truth of what we shared." "But then why does it feel like we're strangers now?" Axiron stood, pacing the small room. His movements had regained their fluid grace, all signs of illness erased. He looked healthy, strong, vibrant, and utterly alone. "I think we're trying to communicate through the wrong medium," he said finally. "Before, we had direct consciousness-to-consciousness contact. Now we're reduced to words, to physical proximity, to these clumsy biological interfaces. It's like trying to recreate a symphony using only a single note." "But humans do this every day. We connect through words and physical presence and shared experience. We build relationships, friendships, love, all without telepathic bonds." "Can you teach me how?" The question carried genuine vulnerability. "My people bond slowly, over decades, building shared harmonics. But you humans crash into each other with such intensity. How do you survive it?" "I don't know. We hurt each other. We misunderstand. We love people who don't love us back. We break each other's hearts and somehow keep trying anyway." "That sounds exhausting." "It is. But it's also—" She searched for words. "It's also worth it. When it works, when you find someone who sees you, really sees you, and chooses to stay anyway." Axiron moved closer. Without the mental connection, she had to interpret his body language through human assumptions, but something in his posture suggested hope. "I see you," he said softly. "Even without the telepathic link, I see someone who sacrificed her own safety to help a stranger, who chose connection over isolation, who built a cure not just from science, but from compassion. I see you, Maya, and I choose to stay." "Your government handlers might have something to say about that." "Then let them say it. I'm done running, done letting circumstances dictate my choices. I spent 3 months fleeing the Stellamortem, and in the end, I found something worth more than survival. I found you."
Maya felt tears on her cheeks. Without their connection, she couldn't feel his emotions directly anymore, but she could see something in the way he held himself, in the way his bioluminescent veins pulsed slightly faster. "What are you saying?" she asked, though part of her already knew. "I'm saying that I want to try, to build something between us the way your species does, slowly, awkwardly, through words and time, and choosing each other every day. I'm saying that losing the telepathic bond
doesn't mean losing what we found in each other. You'd be stuck on Earth. Your people are dying on Zephyros, yes, and now I carry the cure in my very cells. Axiron touched his chest, where human blood had restructured his biology. 12 different humans live in me now, their patterns woven into mine. I'm no longer purely Zephyrosi. I'm something new, something that bridges two worlds. Maya understood what he wasn't saying. You want to go back, to save them. Eventually, yes, but first, he reached out, his hand hovering near hers, asking permission. She took it, marveling at how alien his touch still felt, how right it nonetheless seemed. First, I want to learn what it means to love someone without a telepathic shortcut, to build bridges through conversation instead of direct consciousness transfer, to choose each other not because biology demands it, but because we want to. That could take time, months, years. I have time now, thanks to you. They stood like that, hands clasped, two beings from different worlds trying to figure out how to exist in the same space. It wasn't the overwhelming intimacy of their mental connection. It was quieter, more uncertain, but it was theirs. A knock on the door interrupted them. Ramirez entered, followed by Sarah and several officials Maya didn't recognize. Dr. Maya, Axiron, Sarah began, her tone formal. We've reached a decision regarding your status. Maya tensed, preparing for the worst. Indefinite detention, separation, some bureaucratic nightmare that would tear apart what they were trying to build. The Joint Chiefs have reviewed Dr. Ramirez's report. The successful treatment of the Stellamortem has implications far beyond one patient. If this disease exists in space, if it can potentially threaten Earth, then we need to understand it. And more importantly, she paused, and something almost like a smile crossed her face. We need allies who understand it better than we do. What are you proposing? Axiron asked carefully. Conditional freedom. You'll work with our medical teams to document everything about the Stellamortem and its cure, help us prepare defenses in case it ever reaches Earth, and eventually, she glanced at Maya, we understand you wish to return to your home world. We're prepared to help you do that. You'd build a ship? Maya's voice cracked with disbelief. We'd adapt Axiron's crashed vessel's technology and build a ship capable of reaching Zephyros. Not immediately, it would take years, but yes, in exchange for his cooperation, for his knowledge, we'd help him save his people. Axiron's hand tightened on Maya's. And what would be the cost of this generosity? Documentation, full disclosure. This becomes a joint human Zephyrosi project. The cure, the technology, everything shared openly. No secrets. That's it? That's it? Sarah's expression softened slightly. Look, I'm a government agent. My job is to protect humanity from threats, but you've proven you're not a threat. You're a person who came here desperate, who was helped by someone with more compassion than common sense, she nodded at Maya, and who responded with honor. In my book, that earns a chance. Maya could hardly breathe. You're letting him stay? We're letting you both stay, together if you wish, though I imagine the paperwork for housing an extraterrestrial is going to give someone a migraine. Sarah turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, Doctor, what you did was reckless, dangerous, and violated about 40 different protocols. It was also brave as hell. Congratulations on your miracle. They gave Maya her laboratory back, expanded with new equipment and a research team. Axiron worked beside her, teaching human scientists about Zephyronsi biology in return for learning about Earth medicine. The work was fascinating, groundbreaking, the kind of career-defining research Maya had always dreamed about. but the best part was the small moments in between. Learning to read Axiron's body language without telepathy, interpreting the flickering of his bioluminescent veins as emotional indicators, teaching him about human humor, watching him try to understand why certain combinations of words made people laugh, sharing coffee in the mornings. He couldn't drink it, but he liked the smell, while they discussed the day's research goals. "Your people have a strange relationship with time," Axiron observed one morning, 3 months into their arrangement. "You act as if there's never enough, yet you waste it on trivialities." "Says the alien who spent 40 minutes yesterday watching videos of cats," Maya shot back. "That was research. Understanding Earth fauna is important for what? Your sociological study of humanity, or because you think they're cute?" Axiron's veins flashed a color she'd learned to interpret as embarrassment. "They're extremely small and inefficient predators. It makes no logical sense that I find them appealing. Welcome to Earth. Nothing makes sense, and that's half the fun." They were learning each other's languages, both literal and metaphorical. Axiron was picking up English rapidly, though his accent carried harmonics that no human throat could reproduce. Maya was attempting Zephyros, which involved vocalizations in frequencies she couldn't quite reach and conceptual frameworks her human brain struggled to grasp. But they were trying. Every day they were trying. The research progressed. They successfully synthesized a version of the multi-donor treatment that could be mass-produced. If the Stellamortem ever reached Earth, humanity now had a defense. And more importantly, they'd created a treatment that could be transported to Zephyros. "Your planet could be saved," Maya said, reviewing the latest results. "We've proven the process works. Your people could receive transfusions from multiple sources, rebuild their cellular structures the way yours was rebuilt." "Multiple sources that don't exist on Zephyros," Axiron pointed out. "The treatment requires biological diversity we don't have. So we send it. Blood banks, genetic samples, everything needed to administer the cure. Earth saves Zephyros." She said it lightly, but they both understood the implications. For Axiron to deliver the cure, he'd have to leave, return to his world, his people, his life before the crash. "The ship won't be ready for another 2 years," Axiron said quietly. "We have time." But Maya heard the unspoken question, and then what? 18 months later, Maya stood in the observation deck, watching construction on the ship that would take Axiron home. It was beautiful, a hybrid of human engineering and Zephyrosi design principles, organic curves meeting metallic efficiency, a vessel meant to bridge worlds. "Having second thoughts?" Ramirez asked, joining her at the window. "Every day," Maya admitted. "We're sending him back to save his people. It's the right thing to do, but you're in love with him and he's leaving." Maya didn't bother denying it. Over the months, her feelings had only deepened. Without the intensity of their telepathic connection, something quieter but more durable had grown between them. Inside jokes, comfortable silences, the way his presence made her laboratory feel like home. "He's offered to stay," she said, "multiple times. Says his people survived this long without him, they can survive longer. But I can see the guilt in him every day. His entire civilization is dying, and he has the cure. How can I ask him to choose me over that?" "Maybe you don't have to ask him to choose." Ramirez: "What do you mean? The ship has room for 2. Her heart skipped. "I can't leave Earth. My research, my work, can be done anywhere. Hell, it could be done better on Zephyros, working directly with their physiology. You'd be the first human to visit another inhabited world, the first xenobiologist to study an alien species in their natural environment." Ramirez smiled. "Plus, I hear the sunsets are remarkable. 3 sons, right? You're serious. The program director position here is yours if you want it. But Maya, I've watched you these past months. You're brilliant, dedicated, exactly the kind of scientist we need. But you're also a woman in love who's trying to be noble instead of honest. So I'm giving you permission to be selfish. Go with him. Study Zephyros. Save an alien civilization. And maybe, in the process, save yourself from another decade of isolation.
Maya stared at the ship, her mind racing. Leave Earth? Everything she knew? But what did she have here, really? A career, yes. Colleagues, certainly. But no family, no close friends. Just work and loneliness, with slightly better lab equipment. Whereas with Axiron... "I need to think about this," she said. "Think fast. Ship launches in 6 months." That night, Maya found Axiron in his quarters, composing. He'd built himself an instrument that looked like a harp crossed with a light synthesizer, creating music in both audible frequencies and visual patterns. The composition he played was hauntingly beautiful, carrying a melody that spoke of longing and home. "That's new," Maya said softly, not wanting to interrupt. His hand stilled on the strings. "It's called Elegy for Two Worlds. I've been working on it for months. It's beautiful and sad. It's about choices, about belonging to two places and feeling complete in neither." He set the instrument aside. "The ship will be ready soon. I know. I keep telling myself this is temporary, that I'll cure my people, establish communication protocols between our worlds, and return to Earth, to you." His bioluminescent veins pulsed in the pattern she'd learned meant uncertainty. "But I don't know if that's truth or delusion. The journey alone will take months. Curing an entire civilization could take years. And you deserve more than someone who promises to return someday." Maya sat beside him. Without words, she took his hand, marveling as always at how strange and right the gesture felt. "I spoke with Ramirez today. He suggested something I haven't been able to stop thinking about." "What?" "He suggested I come with you." "To Zephyros?" "As a researcher, a xenobiologist, an expert on the Stellamortem cure, someone who understands both species now." I forced myself to continue. "And maybe as someone who doesn't want to spend years wondering if you're ever coming back." Axiron went absolutely still. Even his bioluminescence seemed to freeze. "What?" "To Zephyros, as a researcher, a xenobiologist, an expert on the Stellamortem cure, someone who understands both species now." I forced myself to continue. "And maybe as someone who doesn't want to spend years wondering if you're ever coming back." Axiron went absolutely still. Even his bioluminescence seemed to freeze. "What?" "To Zephyros, as a researcher, a xenobiologist, an expert on the Stellamortem cure, someone who understands both species now." I forced myself to continue. "And maybe as someone who doesn't want to spend years wondering if you're ever coming back." "Why not? What's holding me here? A laboratory I can replicate anywhere? Research that would actually be enhanced by access to Zephyrosi biology? No family? No close friends? Nothing but work and Earth," Axiron interrupted. "Your world, your species, your home." "Home is where you don't feel alone," Maya said quietly. "I've been alone on Earth for a decade. But with you, even without the telepathic connection, I feel like I finally found where I'm supposed to be." "You would leave everything for me?" "No, I'd leave everything for us, for the chance to build something impossible, to be the bridge between two worlds, the same way you are now." She squeezed his hand. "Plus, professionally speaking, the opportunity to study an alien biosphere is literally a once-in-a-lifetime chance. I'd be an idiot to pass it up." Axiron made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob.
You're terrifying, do you know that? You humans and your reckless intensity, you feel everything so fiercely. Is that a yes? It's a, are you absolutely sure? Because once we leave, there's no quick back. The journey is months each direction. You'd be committed to years on a world nothing like your own. I spent years alone on my own world. At least on Zephyros, I'd have you. This time, Axiron did laugh. Ramirez was right. You're both brilliant and absolutely terrible at self-preservation. So, is that a yes? He pulled her closer, his alien physiology making the embrace slightly awkward but no less genuine. Yes, yes, Maya of Earth, come with me to Zephyros. Help me save my people, and then let's figure out what two beings from different worlds can build when they refuse to let the universe keep them apart. The launch was attended by more media than Maya had ever experienced. The first human to travel to another inhabited world. The alien who'd come seeking cure and found love. The ship that represented humanity's first step towards becoming an interstellar species.
Sarah stood at the edge of the crowd, watching the preparations with her usual measured expression. She'd pulled Maya aside earlier with final instructions, emergency protocols, communication schedules, diplomatic guidelines that felt absurdly formal for what was essentially an unprecedented medical mission. "Nervous?" Sarah asked now. "Terrified," Maya admitted. "I'm leaving my planet, everything I've ever known. But not alone." "No, not alone." Through the crowd, Maya spotted Axiron making his final checks on the ship. Over the past months, he'd regained not just health, but vitality. His bioluminescence shone brighter. His movements carried confidence. His three eyes held hope instead of desperation. He saw her looking and smiled, a human gesture he'd learned to replicate, though it still looked slightly off on his alien features. But Maya had learned to see past the alienness to the person beneath. Funny how what once seemed strange now felt like home. "Ready?" he called across the tarmac. "Ready," she confirmed. They boarded together. The ship's interior was a fascinating blend of technologies. Human life support merged with Zephyrosi navigation systems. Comfortable for neither species, perfect for both. Like the relationship, Maya thought. Always slightly awkward, always absolutely worth it. The launch sequence initiated. Through the viewports, Earth fell away. Blue and green and impossibly beautiful. Maya felt a pang of loss, watching her home world shrink to a marble, then a star, then a memory. "Regrets?" Axiron asked, his hand finding hers on the console. "A few, but they're outweighed by everything else." "What's that?" Maya turned to face him fully. Without the telepathic connection, she had to say the words aloud. Strange how that made them both harder and more important. "Hope," she said simply. "For the first time in years, I'm not running from loneliness. I'm running toward something, toward your people, toward discovery, toward building a life that spans worlds." She squeezed his hand. "Toward you." Axiron's bioluminescence flared bright enough to cast shadows. "I love you," he said in careful English. "I don't know if I say it correctly, if I express it the way your people do, but I love you, Maya of Earth." "I love you too, Axiron of Zephyrosi, my impossible, cross-species, completely illogical love." "We're going to be terrible at this," he warned. "Relationships are hard enough within a species, across species, across worlds. Building something no one's ever attempted before? We're going to make mistakes, hurt each other, struggle with differences we can't anticipate." "Probably," Maya agreed cheerfully. "And we'll figure it out anyway. Because that's what we do. We crash into impossible situations and somehow find solutions."
The ship's AI announced they were approaching jump speed,
the point where Zephyrosi technology would fold space and carry them across the galaxy in months instead of millennia. "Last chance to change your mind," Axiron said. "Not a chance." The stars stretched, reality bent, and Maya held tight to the alien's hand, watching through the viewport as Earth disappeared behind them and an unknown world waited ahead. She'd spent her career studying diseases of the blood, trying to understand how life persisted against entropy. Now she was living proof of her own theories, that connection was stronger than isolation, that love could bridge impossible distances, that sometimes the cure wasn't in the chemistry, but in the choice. The choice to try, to risk, to leap into the void and trust that someone would be there to catch you. 3 months to Zephyros, Axiron said, checking their navigation. What should we do with all that time? Maya smiled. Tell me about your world. Teach me your language properly. Show me your music. Let me understand where you came from so I can help you save it. And in between? In between, we figure out how 2 impossible people build 1 impossible life. Axiron's bioluminescence pulsed in the pattern she'd learned meant happiness. That sounds perfect. They flew on through the dark, leaving one world behind and traveling toward another. 2 beings who shouldn't have met, who couldn't have connected, who'd found each other anyway, through medicine and crisis and the sheer stubborn refusal to let the universe dictate who they were allowed to love. Somewhere ahead, Zephyros waited. A dying world that would soon receive the cure carried an Axiron's transformed biology. Millions of lives that would be saved because a human woman had chosen kindness over protocol, because an alien musician had been stubborn enough to keep seeking hope. But that was the future. In this moment, in the small capsule hurtling between stars, they were simply 2 people learning how to be together. No telepathy, no medical crisis, just conversation and companionship and the growing certainty that they'd chosen right. "Hey, Axiron," Maya said, after a while. "Yes?" "Thank you for crash landing in that wheat field." He laughed, the sound carrying harmonics that still sent shivers down her spine. "Thank you for being the kind of person who drives into danger instead of calling the authorities. We're both terrible at making smart decisions." "The absolute worst," he agreed. And hand in hand, they sailed into the vast unknown, 2 hearts beating in different rhythms, but somehow, impossibly, in perfect harmony.